Ms. Clerk.
Sir, do you solemnly swear the testimony you give this court and jury in the issue now pending between the Commonwealth and the defendant at the bar shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you, sir.
Watch that back seat right here, sir. Thank you.
May I proceed, Your Honor?
Please.
If you wouldn't mind, could you just introduce yourself to the members of the jury, and if you could please state your first and your last name, spell your last name.
Yes, good morning. My name's Tyrone Camper. My last name is spelled C-A-M-P-E-R.
And can you tell us by whom you're employed?
The Boston Police Department.
And how long have you been with the Boston Police Department?
Over 30 years.
Can you tell us what your current assignment is and what your current responsibilities are?
I'm currently assigned to the Firearm Analysis Unit. At the Firearm Analysis Unit, we conduct examinations of weapons and various types of ammunition components, such as fired bullets and fired cartridge casings. We examine the weapons and ammunition components, and after we complete an examination of those components, we then classify them in the Massachusetts Journal of Law. In addition to that, we practice what's called forensic firearm identification. That's a process where we attempt to identify if a particular bullet or cartridge case was fired from a particular weapon.
And what's your current rank?
I'm a detective.
Detective, how long have you been with the Firearms Analysis Unit, or FAU?
This year will be 20 years.
Can you tell us a little bit about where you were assigned prior to going to the Firearms Analysis Unit?
After I graduated from the police academy, my first assignment was in Area C11 in Dorchester as a police officer. From there, I went to the drug control unit, and after the drug control unit, I went to what was called the major case unit. From the major case unit, I went to the homicide unit, and then from the homicide unit, I went to the firearm analysis unit.
And that was in 1997?
Yes, 1997.
And you've been in the Firearms Analysis Unit since then, is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Can you tell us a little bit about your formal education?
I have a bachelor's degree in economics from Framingham State University. I have a master's degree in criminal justice from Anna Maria College.
In addition to your formal education, Detective, can you also tell us a little bit about your background and training, specifically as it relates to your work in the FAU?
Excuse me. Training is an ongoing process. When I first started working in the unit, my training started off sort of like an apprentice type training, where I worked with a senior evidence, how to safely handle weapons, and also how to conduct comparisons of fired bullets and cartridge casings. In addition to that, there are other types of training, such as armor schools. At an armor school, you learn how guns are made, how to take them apart and put them back together again. I've attended several armor schools of different gun manufacturers, such as Glock, Ruger, SIG Arms, and Beretta. In addition to that, part of your training involves the touring of factories of different gun manufacturers. I've toured the Ruger manufacturing plant and also the Smith & Wesson manufacturing plant. We practice what's called firearm identification. That's a process, again, where we attempt to identify if a bullet or cartridge case was fired from a particular weapon. So I received training in the comparisons of cartridge casings and in bullet comparisons. In addition to that, I received training from the Federal Bureau of Investigation in the area of tool-mark identification. I've also received training from them in the area of gunshot residue testing. I'm a member of the Association of Firearm and Tool-Mark Examiners. They're the professional organizations for practitioners in the field of firearm and tool-mark examinations. They offer a yearly conference, and I've attended conferences with them. I received training from the Henry Lee Institute in the area of crime scene investigation. I've completed ongoing training within my unit from the National Institute of Justice Forensic Science Technology Center. It was a continuing education program where I received training on the history of firearms, on the safe handling of weapons, report writing, how to safely handle weapons again, comparisons of bullets, testimony in court. And again, training is ongoing, and I could sit here all day, but my memory's somewhat exhausted about that.
Detective Camper, you mentioned that you had received training in comparing shell casings and projectiles to guns to determine whether those items were fired from a specific gun. Can you tell us where that training took place, if you can recall?
The training with respect to the examination of fired bullets and cartridge casings took place at our unit. The Boston Police Department hired a contractor to come in to give us training. The name of the contractor was a company by the name of Fate Forensics. And in addition to that, a second company was hired by the name of Focus Forensics, F-O-C-O-S-S. And they came in and gave us continuing education and training in those areas.
Detective Camper, can you tell us, or can you estimate for us, the number of firearms you've test fired in your career?
At this point, I'd say well over 4,000.
And can you tell us how many microscopic examinations you've conducted with respect to trying to determine whether a projectile or a shell casing was fired from a specific gun?
It'd be in thousands, I'd say over 1,000.
Is the firearms identification or firearms analysis unit of the Boston Police Department an accredited unit?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about what it means to be accredited and the process of accreditation?
The ISO is International Organization for Standardization. It's called 17025. It's the criteria by which a laboratory is examined or tested. The accreditation process involves an evaluation of your laboratory management system, training records, safety, everything that goes on within the lab, testimony evaluation. And so the ASCLD lab, the American Society of Crime Laboratory Directors, Lab Accreditation Board is the name of the company. They will come in and they will review all of your documentation, your worksheets, your management system, your quality system, the way you do your casework, do you have the appropriate amount of training to do the job that you do. And so we were able to successfully become accredited in firearm identification.
And how often does your lab or does your unit undergo that process of accreditation?
This year was the first year for us that we became accredited. So,
do you continuously undergo what's known as proficiency testing?
Yes, every year we are given a proficiency test.
And can you tell the members of the jury what that consists of, at least as far as your unit is concerned?
Over the years, most proficiency tests involve the comparison of either a fired set of bullets or a fired set of cartridge casings. What we're asked to do in the test is to make a determination about whether some submitted cartridge cases or bullets were fired from a particular weapon. And so we will conduct an examination of those items, and we will reach a conclusion about whether or not those items were fired from the weapon, and then submit our results.
And have you passed all of your proficiency tests that you've taken while at the FAU?
Yes.
Detective, you said one of your responsibilities at the Firearms Analysis Unit is to determine whether certain ammunition has been fired from a specific gun. When you make that determination, what kinds of things are you looking at to determine whether a piece of ammunition has been fired from a specific gun?
Well, an initial examination involves the evaluation of what are called class characteristics. With respect to firearm, class characteristics refer to a restricted group source. There are types of characteristics that are predetermined by the manufacturer. So with respect to weapons, you have a class characteristic would be, one characteristic would be caliber. A second class characteristic would be inside the barrel of the weapon. Another type of class characteristic would be the number of rifling, specifically the number of lands and grooves inside of a barrel.
So you mentioned a couple of components of a gun, so let's talk a little bit just about how a gun is made. Can you explain to the members of the jury how a gun is typically made?
Well, depending on the manufacturer, there are many different processes. I could refer to one process called forging, where a piece of bar stock or metal is placed into a mold and then it's hammered into a rough shape or form. And from there, that piece is then further processed depending on what type of part it is on a firearm. It's a rough form when it's hammer forged into that mold. And then from that point on, there's further finishing of it. It could be drilled, it could be cut, it could be turned on a lathe, it could be sanded, filed. It all depends on the part that's being made. If it's a barrel, once you have the mold, they would drill a hole into the center of it, and then once they drill a hole in the center of that barrel, then they would then ream the barrel to get it smoothed out, and then from that point on, they will introduce a broach or a gang broach into that hole and cut the rifling into the barrel.
And those are all done by machined tools, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and in particular, you mentioned drilling, reaming, and rifling. Those are three processes related to the production of a barrel of a weapon, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Mr. Lee and I exchanged these last night. I have no problem with any of the modules.
Thank you.
Okay, to have this marked, Your Honor, as the next item for identification. Showing you a copy of what's been marked KK for identification. Do you recognize that, Detective?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And you mentioned that one of the things that are cut into a barrel are things called lands and grooves. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And can you show us or tell us what a land is?
Okay, in this picture here, handgun barrel in the middle, the word land, that refers to the raised portion that would be inside of a barrel. The space between the lands would be called a groove.
Okay. And in this particular diagram, there are a number of arrows pointing to examples of lands, in particular coming from the left. That arrow and that arrow, correct?
Yes.
And a number of also examples of grooves, which is what you would probably call a recessed portion within the barrel?
Yes, the space between the lands.
Okay. And those lands and grooves are cut into what appears to be a spiral shape. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay. And what is the purpose of cutting lands and grooves into the barrel of a gun in the shape of a spiral?
Lands or grooves are designed to impart spin on a bullet as it travels down the barrel of the weapon. If the land and groove twists to the right, that will spin the bullet to the right. If it's pointing to the left, it will spin the bullet to the left. Without the lands and grooves, a bullet wouldn't have any stability to fly through the air.
So if a bullet were to be fired out of a barrel that was smooth on the inside, that is lacking any of the spiral cuts, what would happen to it?
It would have a tendency to tumble, and it wouldn't have any accuracy.
Now you mentioned that some spirals go to the right and some spirals go to the left. Is that one of the class characteristics that you described earlier, that the manufacturer of the weapon chooses on its own?
Yes, that's correct.
Does the manufacturer also choose the number of lands and grooves that are cut into the barrel of a weapon?
Yes.
Now, these are some of the characteristics that you're looking at when you're trying to make a determination as to whether a piece of ammunition has been fired from a gun. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, in addition to those, are there other kinds of marks left by the tools that are valuable to an examiner?
Yes.
Okay, can you tell the jury a little bit about those marks that are left by the tools in the manufacturing process?
Another class of marks that we look at are called individual characteristics. Individual characteristics result from the manufacturing process. Random imperfections are left behind on the surfaces of firearm parts as a result of them being manufactured. In addition to that, a weapon can wear or it could be abused, and these markings or random imperfections or abuse are then imparted onto the surfaces of a bullet as it's being fired down the barrel of a weapon.
Let's now talk a little bit about just some definition of terms. Approach a little, Michelle.
You may.
And again, I think without objection, if I could have this marked as the next item for identification.
Yes, without objection, Your Honor, there's all of the demonstrable exhibits we exchanged between us last night. It's fine. LL.
Thank you.
Showing you what's been marked LL for identification, Detective Camper, do you see that?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize to be shown in LL?
It's a cartridge that has part of its section cut out.
Okay. So let's just begin from the start. The whole thing is called a cartridge.
Yes.
And let's talk about the components of a cartridge, if you wouldn't mind, and walk us through the components of a cartridge.
The left side, over in this area, is the head stamp area. And in the center of that head stamp is your primer. In the middle, where the area is black, is propellant powder. The outside part is your cartridge case. At the end, you have your bullet.
And in this particular diagram is the bullet or projectile, the sort of orangish colored part of the cartridge?
Yes.
All right. And you mentioned the head stamp earlier, and I'm drawing an arrow to what you identified earlier as the head stamp. Typically, on a cartridge, are there any markings on the head stamp around the base of the cartridge?
Yes.
What kind of markings would you find there?
You would usually find the manufacturer's name or abbreviation of the manufacturer's name, the caliber, and the caliber for which the cartridge was designed to be used in, the caliber of the weapon.
Now, you mentioned the primer. Can you just tell us what the mechanism is by which a projectile is fired out of a gun? What's the process?
Well, first the cartridge has to be loaded inside of the weapon, and upon pulling the trigger of a weapon, depending on its design, either an external hammer will fall and strike the primer, or an internal firing pin will be released and strikes the primer. Striking the primer will produce a spark. On the other side of this primer will be a flash hole. The spark will travel through the flash hole. It will then ignite the propellant powder, which then will turn into a combustible gas. It forms pressure, inside of the body of that cartridge case. As a result of that pressure, it forces the bullet out of the mouth of that cartridge case down the barrel of that weapon, of a weapon.
And in any handgun, Detective Camper, is it fair to say that the cartridge casing, that is the gold portion of this, does not come out of the barrel of the gun?
No, it does not.
Okay. Just the bullet or the projectile comes out of the barrel of the gun?
Yes.
First witness, Your Honor.
You may.
Do you recognize that, Detective Camper?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and if I could have that marked as the next item for identification.
MM.
Yes, Your Honor.
Showing you what's been marked as MM for identification, do you recognize what's shown in that photograph or diagram?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And this is what you were talking about earlier regarding the direction of twist. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And in the left, first of all, we're looking at two projectiles or two spent bullets. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. On the left-hand side, where the words right twist appear, that is what you would look at and see if a bullet came out of a barrel that had a right twist. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that arrow is sort of slanting to the right?
Yes.
Judge, I just want to make it clear that Mr. Leon, this is not, these are demos, not from this case, this is just demo.
Is that correct?
Yes, Detective Camper, these are not bullets in connection with your work on this case, correct?
That's correct.
This is a
yes.
representative sample.
Yes.
Okay. And then on the right side, the twist goes in a left-hand direction. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, the diameters at the top, what do they tell you?
They are used to determine caliber. When you measure the diameter of a projectile, you can determine caliber from the diameter of a particular projectile.
And in these two particular cases, can you determine the caliber of the bullet that has the .355 inch diameter?
A bullet having that diameter would normally be in a 38 family or nominal caliber of bullets, such as 9mm, 357, or 38 special.
And what about the bullet on the right, the one that has a .452 inch diameter?
That would fall into a 45 caliber family, nominal 45 caliber, such as 45 auto caliber weapons.
Now, in particular on this diagram, that is MM, when you were looking at the class characteristics and more specifically the individual characteristics, are the sections where I've drawn the arrows the areas that you're looking at for those individual characteristics?
Yes.
That is both in the land and groove impressions?
Yes.
All right. And the arrow that I've drawn towards the bottom, is that pointing at, what kind of an impression is that pointing at?
That would be your land impression.
And the top arrow is pointing at?
That would be the end of it.
Okay. And where would a groove impression be?
Groove impression would be where this yellow arrow is. It's
Okay.
right on top of the groove.
Okay. Now, you mentioned looking at class characteristics and individual characteristics. By the way, before we get going, can you tell us what the difference is between a revolver and a semi-automatic with respect to what happens to the shell casings in the firing process?
A shell casing, after it's fired in a revolver, will stay inside the cylinder, and in a semi-automatic handgun, the shell casing will eject out of the weapon onto the ground.
When you actually go to do your examination for class characteristics and individual characteristics, how is that done? Is it done with the naked eye, or is it done under a piece of equipment?
It's done on a piece of equipment.
Okay, can you tell the members of the jury what equipment you use to look at projectiles for class and individual characteristics?
Well, we have what's called a comparison microscope. A comparison microscope is a two-stage microscope with two microscopes essentially mounted on it, one on the left and one on the right. In the center of it has an optical bridge, which allows you to look at both items at the same time. That's the main tool in our field when it comes to conducting comparisons of bullets and cartridge casings.
And does that microscope or a comparison microscope allow you to view the projectile or the cartridge casing in 3D and in 360 degree?
Yes, it's in 3D, yes.
Detective, I want to direct your attention now to July 24th of 2012. Were you working in the FAU on that date?
Yes, I was.
And on that date, did you receive a number of pieces of ballistics evidence recovered in connection with the investigation into the July 16, 2012 shooting deaths of Daniel De Abreu and Safira Furtado?
Yes, I did.
And just to be clear, did you respond to the scene of that incident the night of, or the morning of July 16, 2012?
No, I did not.
Now, when a piece of ammunition comes into the FAU for purposes of examination, is the case number, or is the case given a number, an identifying number?
Yes, it is.
All right, and what's the purpose of being given an identifying number?
So that we can track it, purpose of tracking.
And the items that came into the FAU on July 24, 2012 was given what number?
It was 120581.
120581. And what does the 12 indicate?
The year of the case.
And what does the last four digits 0581 indicate?
That's the number of the case within our unit.
Okay. So anything having to do with that case would be cataloged or filed under that broad number. Is that fair to say?
Yes, yes, it would be.
Now, when the ballistics that came into your unit on July 24th, were you asked to do any specific examinations with respect to those pieces of ballistics?
Yes.
And what were you asked to do?
Well, the case was assigned to me, and so I had to conduct an examination of all the ballistic pieces that were submitted in the case.
And in addition to conducting an examination, were you or did you attempt to do any comparisons with items that were suitable for comparison?
Yes.
And that was to determine, in effect, whether there were any of those items that were fired from the same weapon?
Yes.
And fair to say that some of the items you received were not suitable for comparison,
That's correct.
and
yes.
some of them were suitable for comparison. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
Yes.
Detective, showing you item number 5 that's been received as exhibit number 164 in this case. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and what do you recognize that to be?
It's a fired or discharged .38 caliber bullet.
And that was that given an item number within the FAU?
Yes, it was.
And what item number was that given?
It was given item number 5.
And Detective, was item number 5 one of the pieces of ammunition that you determined was suitable for future comparison?
Yes, it was.
Showing you item, strike that. Showing you exhibit number 165. You recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And exhibit number 165 has what corresponding item number from the FAU?
It's item number 7.
And is the item that you have in front of you also contained in a heat-sealed plastic with a manila envelope?
Yes, it is.
And do you recognize the manila envelope?
Yes.
And is that the packaging that the projectile came in when you received that?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So each, and did you do the same with each projectile? Take it out of the manila envelope and prepare it in a heat-sealed packet?
Yes, I did.
And item number 7, that is exhibit number 165, was that one of the pieces of ammunition that you determined were suitable for comparison?
Yes.
Okay, so item number 5 and item number 7 were both suitable for comparison?
Yes.
Mr. Lee, with regard to item number 7,
Yes, Your Honor.
Detective, I think you described it by item number, but what is it?
Item 7 is a discharged bullet jacket.
And can you explain for the members of the jury what a bullet jacket is?
Bullets can be comprised of different type of metal materials, and they come in different shapes and forms. The metal jacket is usually an outer covering of a bullet, and inside that covering there's usually a lead core. This particular jacket does not have a lead core inside of it. All we have left of this spent jacket is the jacket. As you see, the inside of the jacket is empty.
And that is where the lead core would be, but the lead core is missing?
Yes.
showing you what's been received as exhibit number 172. Do you recognize that, Detective?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And exhibit 172 bears your FAU number, item 9. Is that correct?
Yes.
And could you describe what what item 9 is?
Item 9 is a small lead fragment.
Showing you exhibit number 172, the lead fragment, and I'm just going to put my pinky in there for purposes of having some sort of basis of comparison. Detective Camper, did you take a look at that item, and did you determine whether that item was suitable for comparison?
Yes, I did look at the item, and it was not suitable for comparison purposes.
May I briefly inquire from here, Your Honor?
You may.
Showing you those three items, those exhibits that we just discussed, that is exhibit number 164, item number 5, exhibit number 165, item 7, and exhibit 172, item number 9. On the manila envelopes, although this is somewhat obscured on that one, is there a spot on the manila envelope where the cone, evidence cone, is listed?
It says cone 4
Okay.
on exhibit 164.
Okay. So cone 4 would be corresponding to this spot.
Objection, Judge, we don't know what that spot is over there
Well, let me rephrase it. I'll rephrase it.
on the board that
Cut it. Detective, you did not go to the scene that night, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So these pieces of ballistics evidence that you received had designations on the manila envelope with respect to evidence cones. Is that correct?
That's correct.
In other words, there's an entry on the manila envelope for the evidence cone number.
Yes.
So we've gone through item number 5, number 7, and number 9. At some point, did you receive into the Firearms Analysis Unit in item number 15?
Yes.
Do you recognize that item number?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And inside, is it fair to say that that is heat sealed in plastic, and there's also a manila envelope contained inside the heat sealed plastic? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is that a manila envelope that's different from the manila envelopes contained in exhibits number 164, 165, and 172?
Yes.
And do you recognize that manila envelope?
It's a manila envelope.
Objection, just answer what you recognize it.
Well, you may answer that yes or no.
Yes.
And where do you recognize that envelope from?
It's a medical examiner envelope.
And what item, with respect to item number 15, what is that?
It's a spent fired bullet.
Okay. And is that item in the same or substantially the same condition as when you received it into the Firearms Analysis Unit?
No.
Okay, and what's different about it?
When I opened up the envelope and took it out, there was blood. on the surface of the bullet.
And what did you do, if anything, with respect to the blood on the surface of the bullet?
I cleaned it in a solution of bleaching water.
Other than the blood that you cleaned off the bullet, is the item in the same or substantially the same condition as when you received it?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, at this time I'd offer that as the next number, Exhibit De Bene.
Is there an objection?
Subject to the medical examiner.
All right, we'll receive it. At this stage, Exhibit 173.
Judge, I think it's 214. I think 172 is the last exhibit we talked about.
I'm sorry.
214.
Thank you.
Showing you exhibit number 214, Detective. After looking at exhibit number 214, that is item number 15 in the FAU, did you make a determination as to whether that projectile was suitable for comparison?
Yes, I did.
And what did you determine?
That it was suitable for comparison purposes.
Do you recognize what I've handed to you there, Detective?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize that to be?
This is item number 16. And there were several small bullet fragments that were submitted.
And do those, does that glassine or heat-sealed plastic also contain a manila envelope similar to the one or identical to the one that you just described as having come from the medical examiner's office?
Yes.
All right. And the particular items that you just described, did you mount them in some kind of way?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And is it fair to say they're very small?
Yes.
Okay. As you look at those now, are those items in the same or substantially the same condition as when you received them from the medical examiner's office?
Yes, they are.
Your Honor, at this time I'd offer that as the next exhibit, also De Bene.
Subject to the medical examiner.
Very good. Exhibit 215.
Now, Detective Camper, the items that you just described are circled with a blue Sharpie, is that correct?
Yes.
And does it appear that all of those are sitting on gridded paper?
Yes.
All right. And what is the significance of that gridded paper?
The gridded paper, they weren't originally mounted on the gridded paper. They were originally mounted on the brown piece of paper to the right here. I believe that these items were examined.
Judge, you're not a receipt notice.
Well, let me ask it slightly differently. The boxes on the gridded paper, do you know what the dimensions are?
No, I don't.
Okay. On the right side, on the brown paper, there's some handwriting, and do you recognize the handwriting?
Yes, I do.
And whose handwriting is that?
Mine?
Okay. And at the very bottom, it appears the word grains. Can you explain to the members of the jury what grains is?
Grains is a unit of measure that's used in the weighing of bullets. 7,000 grains is the equivalent of 1 pound. So I measured all of these items, and I noted the weight of each of the items on the brown piece of paper.
And did you make a determination with respect to exhibit number 215, that is FAU number 16, whether those items were suitable for comparison?
Yes, I did.
And what did you determine?
That they were not suitable for comparison purposes.
Showing you exhibit, is that 182, Detective?
Yes, it is.
That's been received as exhibit number 182. Your FAU number 27, do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and what do you recognize that to be?
Item 27 is a fired or discharged bullet.
And do you recognize the other packaging inside of that heat-sealed plastic?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize that to be?
It's a plastic cup with a name written on the outside of it.
Okay. And is that the way that the bullet came to you when you received it in the FAU?
Yes, it was inside of the plastic cup, and I split the plastic cup in half so that I could package it properly.
And that plastic cup has the name of a doctor on it. Is that fair to say?
I believe it does.
This ended up becoming your item 27 inside the FAU, exhibit number 182. Did you make a determination as to whether that projectile was suitable for future comparison?
Yes, I did.
And what did you determine?
I determined that item 27 was suitable for comparison purposes.
Lastly, showing you FAU item number 52, do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize that to be?
Item 52 are small lead fragments.
And in addition to those lead fragments, do you recognize the same manila envelope as having come from the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner?
Yes.
Did you, at some point, make an examination of those two pieces of lead fragment?
Yes, I did.
Your Honor, at this time, I'd offer that as the next exhibit. Dave Benning.
Same, Your Honor, sir.
Lieutenant Lee, exhibit 183.
216.
Thank you, Nancy.
Showing you FAU item number 52. Now exhibit number 216. Did you make a determination as to whether those... Sorry, let me just get this focused in. Did you make a determination as to whether those two lead fragments were suitable for comparison purposes?
Yes, I did.
And what did you determine?
They were not suitable for comparison purposes.
So as a result of your examination, Detective, you determined that item numbers 5, 7, 15, and 27 were the only ones suitable for comparison. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, based upon your examination of 5, 7, 15, and 27, were you able to determine class characteristics such as caliber or the manufacturer?
I was able to determine or I was able to determine caliber, but I was not able to determine the manufacturer of those projectiles.
And what did you determine was the caliber of the projectile?
Those projectiles were nominal 38. They belong to the 38 caliber family, but that also could include different cartridge types, such as 9mm, 38 Special, or 357.
Were you able to determine the class characteristics based on rifling? That is, were you able to tell by examining 5, 7, 15, and 27 what the rifling was, that is, the twist?
Yes.
And what was the twist?
All 4 of them had 5 right rifling characteristics, 5 lands and grooves with a right twist.
So all of them had 5 lands and grooves, all of them had a right twist.
Yes.
Now, at this point, is it fair to say you had no gun? In other words, to compare the projectiles to?
That's correct.
Okay. So instead, what did you do?
Then I conducted a comparison of the 4 submitted bullets to try to make a determination if they were all fired from the same weapon or if they were fired from a different weapon.
And in this case, the same, at this time, unrecovered weapon.
That's correct.
And what was the first thing that you did in undertaking that comparison between the 4 bullets? What did you do first?
Well, again, the first level was to make sure or to determine what the class characteristics are and to see if the class characteristics are in agreement. They were all 5 right twist, and they all had 5 lands and grooves, so then I could proceed to the next step where I could put them under a comparison microscope and examine them and determine if they had sufficient individual characteristics for identification purposes.
And did you choose among the 4 one of them to serve as sort of an index?
Yes, it did.
And can you explain to the members of the jury what you mean by that?
Well, bullets, unlike cartridge casings, will collide with things and they deform. And sometimes it can affect the individual characteristics or markings which are left behind on the surface of the land and in the groove. And so after looking at all of them, I determined that item 5 had the best markings for comparison purposes.
So you put item number 5 on the comparison microscope,
Yes.
and then what did you do?
Item 5 was mounted on one side of the comparison microscope. Then I would take the next item, item 7, and compare item 7 to item 5 to see if, in fact, they had sufficient amount of individual characteristics to state that they were fired from the same weapon.
And as a result of your comparison between items number 5 and 7, did you form an opinion to a reasonable degree of ballistic certainty whether item numbers 5 and 7 were fired from the same unrecovered weapon?
Yes, I did.
And what was that opinion?
My opinion to a reasonable degree of ballistic certainty is that item 5 and item 7 were fired down the barrel of the same firearm.
After looking at item number 7 compared to item number 5, did you then replace item number 7 with item number 15?
Yes, I did.
And did you undertake a similar or same comparison, visual comparison between items number 5 and item number 15?
Yes.
And after looking at item number 5 and item number 15 in the comparison microscope, did you form an opinion to a reasonable degree of ballistic certainty whether item number 5 and item number 15 were fired from the same unrecovered weapon?
Yes, I did.
And what was your opinion?
My opinion to a reasonable degree of ballistic certainty is that item 5 and item 15 were fired from the same, down the barrel of the same firearm.
And lastly, did you then replace item number 15 with item number 27 and make the same visual comparison in the microscope between 5 and 27?
Yes, I did.
And as a result of your visual comparison, did you form an opinion to a reasonable degree of ballistic certainty as to whether item number 5 and item number 27 were fired from the same weapon.
Yes, it did.
And what was that opinion?
My opinion to a reasonable degree of ballistic certainty is that item 5 and item 27 were fired down the barrel of the same firearm.
Now, Detective Camper, in your lab or at the FAU, do you have the ability to take photographs, magnified photographs, of the view that one would have in looking through the comparison microscope?
Yes.
And in this particular case, did you take some representative photographs of items number 5, 7, 15, and 27 as viewed through the comparison microscope?
Yes, it did.
I have no objection.
Your Honor, if I could then, without objection, have these 7 photographs marked sequentially as the next numbered exhibits.
It's 217 and 223.
Mr. Lee, as you show those, let's have the witness identify them by exhibit number
Yes.
so we can match number to picture.
Yes. Showing you what's been received as exhibit number 217. Do you recognize that, Detective?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And just the way the camera is set up, there are certain captions. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. In the upper left corner is that the what is that?
It's supposed to be a scale.
Okay. There's the date,
Yes.
and the 12-0581 at the top is the FAU number,
Yes.
and the 3-digit numeral at the end is the photograph number.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Down at the bottom, is the FAU item number. Is that correct?
Yes.
And the TC5, what does that indicate?
TC are my initials. All the items are marked with my initials at the base.
So you actually etched them in with something?
Yes.
And this would be item number 5 on the comparison microscope on the left side, and item number 7 on the comparison microscope on the right side. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Showing you exhibit number 218. This is a photograph comparing item number 15 to item number 9. Is that correct?
It's just a picture showing the items. It's not necessarily a comparison.
And just as a reminder, item number 9 you determined was not suitable for comparison.
That's correct.
Showing you exhibit 219. This is item number 27, and that's just the item number alone, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
This was one of the items received. This was the item received in the plastic jar with the doctor's name on it that you split in half and put in the heat-sealed envelope.
That's correct.
Showing you exhibit number 220. I apologize. And this is FAU item number 5 being compared to FAU item number 7. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And the red line with the arrow, what does that indicate?
On the comparison microscope, there's a dividing line that I can control, which I can move the black line, which runs from the top of that arrow all the way up to the top of the page. What I'm showing here at the top of the arrow is the bottom part of the land impression mark. And so from the top of the arrow all the way up, you're seeing what's called a land impression mark.
Is that what I've shown here?
Yes.
And on one side of the arrow, let's say just the left side of that arrow, of the red arrow, is that item number 5?
Yes, it is.
And then on the other side is item number 7, and you've basically just brought them close together through the microscope.
Yes.
Showing you exhibit number 221. That's a representative photograph of your comparison between item number 5 and item number 15. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Showing you exhibit number 222. That's item number 5 versus item number 27.
Yes.
Now, Detective, these photographs that I've shown the jury just now and that you've walked us through, are those photographs used by you to make your comparison and arrive at your opinions?
No, the photographs are just a form of documentation to support the conclusion that I reached.
And why is it that you don't use the photographs in arriving at your opinion as to whether the projectile was fired from a particular weapon?
We have to look at the actual items to make that determination. It's not made based off of photographs. And when I'm looking at items under the comparison microscope, it's in 3 dimensions. That photograph only represents two dimensions.
Detective, I'd like to now direct your attention, direct your attention to June 28, 2013. On that date, did you receive some items in the FAU?
Yes, it did. They came from the state police.
Is it fair to say, Detective, I've handed you a number of manila envelopes as well as a clear plastic envelope containing, or a heat-sealed envelope containing a manila envelope and an item.
Yes.
If we could just start with the plastic envelope that contains the manila envelope and that item. What is that item?
This item is a spent bullet. The envelope contained all 6 of the fired bullets and fired cartridge casings. They came in this envelope here.
So when you received that from the state police, it contained 6 projectiles and 6 casings. And did you do something with those items?
Yes, I did.
What did you do with them?
I took each of the items that were submitted in the envelope and I gave them all a unique item number.
And the projectiles were given item numbers what?
I believe it's items 1 through 6 were given to the projectiles, and 6 through 12 item numbers were given for the cartridge cases.
And is one of the projectiles contained inside that plastic envelope now?
Yes, it is.
And which item is that?
I marked it as item number 1.
Okay. So item number 1, that one of the projectiles is in the plastic envelope along with the manila envelope that it arrived in, which contained all of them. That is 6 projectiles and 6 cartridge casings.
Yes.
You then put them into individual envelopes and gave them each an identification number or an item number. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Your Honor, at this time I'd ask that the plastic envelope be admitted as the next numbered exhibit with the individual manila envelopes as letter designations thereafter.
We'll take that up in a moment. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to excuse you for lunch now until 2 p.m. Jurors may be.